right, welcome back to Behind the Fiction. We have a guest today who's not really going to be a guest. She's going to be a co-host on this new Monday show when we talk about the new LMBPN books that are coming this week. Alexa Larberg, welcome to Behind the Fiction.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And this is not really a welcome to you because podcast listeners, the ones who listen to the podcast version rather than the video versions, will have heard your voice numerous times. Alexa is the person who does the intros for all the videos or all the audio podcasts. She also does the editing for them and the producing, et cetera, et cetera. So she is the producer of Behind the Fiction. I am just talent.
That makes me sound really sophisticated. I'm not, but it is me.
It really does. And we have had numerous conversations over the course of the last several months. And I can't imagine having the name Alexa right now because every time I speak to Alexa, my Alexa device that's like 4 feet behind me and is thankfully turned off now answers. And so what's it like to go through life having every time someone says your name, there's a device that starts talking?
Well, here's the thing. When Alexa first became like a popular thing, I was still in college. And I don't know, I had known about Alexa, but it really had nothing to do with my life because I was a broke college student and I didn't have an Alexa in my apartment. But I was out at a store and the worker was like, I was just like flipping through shirts or something. And she was like, Alexa, turn down the music. And in my head, I was like, I don't work here. I don't know why you're telling me this. So I kept looking at the shirts. Well, then she said it again. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to ignore her. But honestly, I feel prickly right now. My spikes are about to come out because she's yelling at me. Then she actually raised her voice and was like, Alexa, change the song. And I was like, okay, I'm sorry, but I don't work here. I can't help you. And she was appalled. She was so embarrassed, so mortified. It was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know your name was Alexa. I'm like, oh my. So then I was embarrassed because she wasn't talking to me the whole time. So that's a really good picture of what my life is like these days.
Okay. All right. So good. And you have turned your device off as well. How many do you have?
We have two. Okay. But we call one of them Echo, but the other one is connected to our Facebook portal and you can't change its name. So it's
okay. Yes.
My husband just calls me wife in the kitchen.
How romantic.
It's just really romantic all the time. Super personal,
Yes. All right. Well, let's get to it. Okay. We have some books, and keeping with the theme of Alexa, and since I rely on Alexa for so much, and you can gather which one of those Alexas I'm talking about now, I am just going to ask questions and see if we can get answers from Alexa. Alexa, what's our first book?
Okay, our first book this week is Judge, Jury, and Executioner, Book 7.
And that book the title of that book is The Art of Smuggling. That series is written by Craig Martell. I just heard Alexa in another room start responding to this. That book is written by Craig Martell. And longtime LMBPN readers probably know Craig from his military sci-fi type stuff and his post-apocalyptic books. You may not know that Craig, in addition to retiring from the Marines, then went to law school and was an attorney for years before becoming a writer. In addition to doing some other things, he really is the world's most interesting man, but that's a story for another day. So this is the first series that he's written that features an attorney. So that's kind of cool. So it's like Attorneys in Space, which is just the perfect mashup for Craig. So Rivka,
an attorney in space, really normal, everyday stuff.
Yes, completely normal, everyday stuff. And that series, it's in its 7th book now, but the 6th book was like 4 months ago. So for big fans of that series, and there are a lot of fans of that series, you've been waiting for a little while. So The Art of Smuggling is coming out this week. We're excited about it. I love this series. And well, I guess that's it. I know Craig has plans to continue the series, so we're excited about that. But Rivka is our favorite, as Craig calls her, our favorite legal eagle. So Alexa, what's next?
Next up is Vengeance or Death.
So Vengeance or Death, This is sort of a long, convoluted story. You may remember a 2-book series that we did called Savages, the Team Savage series. And the first book was really long. It was actually 2 books that were put together into a single 200,000 word plus volume and released. And then there was a 3rd book that wrapped up the series. There are a lot of people who don't like reading 200,000 word books. So you're one of them?
I know, I just said, imagine that.
Oh, okay. All right. So we decided to split it up into 3 individual books. And so the first 2 books, which were originally the first book of the large volume, has been split into 2. They were released last week. The 3rd book wasn't as long as the 2 that went together to become the old first book. And this is really confusing. This is really, really getting circular. Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. There are 40,000 new words in the 3rd book, which is coming out this week. And that book, as Alexa said, is Vengeance or Death. So even if you did read the complete Team Savage series, you may want to read the 3rd book again, because it brings in more facets of the zoo universe. So that'll be fun for fans of the zoo. Alexa, what's next?
Up next, we have book 11 in the Lazarus Codex series. And if you watch the Behind the Fiction YouTube videos and or subscribe to the podcast, you will know that we had E.A. Copen, or Liz Copen, the author of this book or this series, on the show maybe 2 weeks ago.
I think it was about 2 weeks ago. So we will link to that in the show notes if you didn't get a chance to hear that. Liz is a funny person and a very engaging person to speak with. So book 11 in the Lazarus Codex, the main character is a sort of a fun ne'er-do-well kind of a guy who lives in New Orleans named Lazarus Kerrigan. These are paranormal books, very popular. Liz has a group of raving fans who are anxiously awaiting book 11. So Liz is now an LMBPN author, and we are publishing book 11. We published book 10 earlier, but we're also publishing the first 9 books in 2 different collections. The first of which we published a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, called Death and Deception. So if you want to get into Liz's series, that's the place to start, not book 11. And if you read a lot of books, you know that, especially our books. So go back, grab Death and Deception. We will do another collection pretty soon with the rest of the books, and that gets us up to 10, 11, and 12, which we'll be producing as individual books. So that's the Lazarus Codex coming this week. The title of book 11 for Liz Copen fans, or E.A. Copen fans, is Lost Soul.
Super.
Alexa, what's next?
Next up, we have a Judith Barron's book.
And Judith Barron's, this is cracking me up, because we have an Alexa in the entryway, and she's responding every time I say something.
She doesn't sound as good as I do, does she?
She does not. She does not, and she doesn't know nearly as much about YouTube as you do. I've asked her. So this, as you may know, Judith Barron's writes a number of different series. Judith Barron's is a pseudonym for Martha Carr and Michael Anderle, and both of them are prolific authors. So this particular book is book 7 in the Last Vampire series. The title is The Girl Retreats. If you haven't read the Last Vampire series yet, we had Martha on 3 or 4 weeks ago to talk about that. We will link to that episode in the show notes as well, so you can kind of get a sense of what the series is about. But the girl, the young vampire, Vicky, I can't remember whether she's 300 or 400 years old. She's a vampire, so she ages very slowly. And I say that like it's a real thing. Maybe it is. I don't know. But she's also this family finds her and kind of absorbs her into their family without really understanding who she is and what's going on. And so she goes off to high school. She's a teenager, and at this time in chronological age, is that the right term, chronological? She looks like a teenager anyway. We'll put it that way. So she's a vampire. She's in high school, There's an agency that's out to get her. That's kind of the story behind the series. And in this book, if you've been reading along, in this book, there are viral videos, double dates, and the agency is closing in on Vicky, and she's not using her powers for some reason. So I'm not sure about that, but if you've been reading along, you probably understand why that is. It's a really fun series, and coming this week, The Girl Retreats.
Perfect.
Alexa, what's next?
Next up, we have a book in the Bohica Chronicles.
The title of this book is Thor. And if you read the third book in Jonathan Brazy's series, Jonathan and a co-writer, you saw in the author notes at the end that Jonathan was like, okay, we're wrapping up this series, but there was this character who'd been a part of some of the books named Thor, and he really felt like there was more to Thor's story. So that's what this is. It's some similar characters. It also takes place in the zoo. This is part of the Bohica Chronicles, and it's not really like book 4 in the Bohica series, Bohica Chronicles series, but it uses the same characters. And if you're a fan of the Thor character, you're going to like this. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, go check out the Bohica Chronicles, because Jonathan is a little bit like Craig. Jonathan is retired military. He writes a lot of military sci-fi. He has raving fans around the world, and this is his first LMBPN series. So we're excited to have him as a part of the family, and we'd love for you to check out those books. Alexa, what's next?
Okay, our last book this week is a book by Chuck Dixon, and it is about a vampire and a zombie. And Steve wanted to make a joke about them walking into a bar, but he couldn't think of it. So I'm going to steal it from him, and he's going to take the rest.
All right, well done. So you did way better than I would have done, because there was no punchline for it. It was essentially, a vampire and a zombie walk into a bar, blah, blah, blah. So this is actually, if you remember a few months ago, the name Chuck Dixon may be familiar to you. Chuck is a prolific writer. He's written a lot of graphic novels. So if you read graphic novels, you might be familiar with him from there. But he also writes thrillers, paranormal, et cetera, et cetera. We picked up a series of his and that had been sold as individual books, put all the books together into one really long book called One Hell of a Bad Time. And that book came out in June and sold like crazy. And as if you follow indie publishing, you understand that there is a sales curve with things. If a series does well, it amps up and then it starts to slow down. It took a long time for Chuck's book to start to slow down, and it's still selling really well. So that's One Hell of a Bad Time, sort of an adventure sci-fi time. There's a time machine involved, and the main characters in that series are going back in time to places that you'd want to be for things that have happened. And it's a really fun series. I don't want to give anything away, but it's really fun. So all 6 books are available for $4.99 as One Hell of a Bad Time. Anyway, the new book is, we think it's going to be called Chuck Dixon's Paranormal Double Pack, because it's really 2 books. One of the books was originally called Gomers, and one of them was called Blooded. So I'm not sure where he came up with those titles, but one is about a vampire and one is about a zombie. And
Will he be on an episode of Behind the Fiction where we can ask him that question?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'll have to see if he's available to do that. He lives right up the road right up the road, like in Tampa. So he's like 2 hours away. So yeah, we should do that. We should get Chuck on here and ask him where he came up with those amazing cover or titles. Amazing.
How to give to people what they want, Steve.
Exactly. So that is it. We will be back next Monday. This is going to be a weekly feature where Alexa and I just chat about the books that are coming this week, and encourage you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And Alexa is really good at this. So Alexa, encourage
everyone to listen to us.
To subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to the podcast.
All right, I'll do it like I do it on the podcast, just to give you a glimpse. Hey, before we get to the show, just so that you make sure you don't miss out and you get all the insider knowledge, make sure that you subscribe to both our YouTube channel and our podcast. Now, let's get to the episode.
Oh, that was well done. That was very well done. We will be back every Monday, we hope, letting you know
Wearing
what.
our black shirts, probably.
Yeah, you notice the way we coordinated, but mine has, I don't know if you can see that, but mine has LMBPN on it. So we'll have
It's
to get one for Alexa as well.
Okay, I don't know if I'm going to wear a black polo.
Oh, it's just not your thing?
It's just not my thing.
Okay, tune in again next week to see what Alexa's wearing and to see whether I'm wearing my black polo or my white polo, because that's as far as I go. I have those two.
Maybe I'll match on accident again.
All right, thanks for listening or watching.
See you next week.